We will have some low cloud moving in off the North Sea, giving a fairly murky end to the night along eastern coast. So the clearest of the skies out towards the west, we could just see a touch of frost here as we start Easter Day morning. So having a closer look at Scotland first thing in the morning, a bit of an east-west split across the country. Eastern areas should be fairly fine with some spells of sunshine, but out towards the west we're still going to have this area of rain around, although it will start to break up as the morning goes on. A fairly grey and damp start also for Northern Ireland, but for much of England and Wales it should be a fairly reasonable start. Still that low cloud initially across the east and also potentially some showers down towards the south-east, but the low cloud and the showers will ease as we head towards lunchtime. So from much of England, Wales and eastern Scotland it is going to be a fairly reasonable day. Maybe the best of the sunshine come the afternoon across parts of Wales and northern England. For Northern Ireland still a good deal of cloud around here with some outbreaks of rain and again still some spots of rain for western Scotland too. But in the sunshine, highs reaching around 16 to 18 degrees, so pleasant enough for the time of year. Unfortunately the fine conditions won't last as we go into Easter Monday, a very different story. Outbreaks of cloud and rain spreading their way eastwards. Probably hang on to the fairly fine conditions for North East Scotland for much of the day, and it will cheer up later also down towards the very far southwest. But the changeable theme will continue as we go into Tuesday and Wednesday, with temperatures around average but pleasant enough in any sunshine.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Ben Leo tonight. Fans outrage in the capital as protesters slam the Supreme Court's definition of a woman. GB News is shouted down at the event, marred by hostile crowds in an attack on the free press. Also,
women feel unsafe. We're just more powerful beings.
Do you
not agree with that?
No, I don't agree with that.
I took to the streets of the LGBT capital of the UK and the world to get the thoughts of Brightonians as well, and elsewhere today. 18 years after she went missing in Portugal, Met Police detectives are given another £100,000 to fund the hunt for Madeleine McCann. That's now more than £13 million since she went missing in 2007. Is that the right decision, or is it time to end the search? And Chris Eubank throws a flurry of verbal punches at his own son, Eubank Jr., after he cracked an egg over an opponent's head. So is berating your own offspring in public good parenting or simply not on? Joining me on my panel tonight is journalist and communications advisor Linda Jubilee, the former Met Police detective Peter Bleksley, and the former Labour Party advisor Matthew Laza. And final destination, eat your heart out. What do you reckon's going on here? Big show coming up on this Holy Saturday, including the first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages, hot off the press. Very good evening to you at home. Happy bank holiday weekend and indeed Easter weekend. I'm Ben Leo, it's 9 o'clock. The big story of today, thousands of trans rights protesters marched through central London days after that bombshell Supreme Court ruling on the definition of a woman. Trans rights groups, as you can see here, and trade unions came together for what they described as an emergency demonstration in London's Parliament Square, while a rally organised by a group called Resisting Transphobia took place in Edinburgh. It comes, of course, after the UK Supreme Court ruled that the legal definition of a woman is based on biological sex. Well, let me tell you, GB News went down there today to hear from protesters, and as you can imagine, some were somewhat hostile to our team. You just needed to see some of the placards they were holding to sense an angry tone. One read, and just to warn you, some of you may find this offensive, it read, "The only good turf is a dead turf." Another said, "Transphobes, fix your hearts or die," as you can see here if you're watching on telly. And this lovely placard said that Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, had blood on his hands. Now, look, despite this, here at GB News, of course, we wanted to hear from both sides of the argument, as we always do. We wanted to hear what they had to say about that landmark ruling. And given we'd heard plenty from the winning side this week, we also wanted to get a different opinion how the other part of society directly affected by this felt. And as we have done all week across the channel, that's what we endeavoured to do today. However, some of the protesters there today weren't so keen on GB News and indeed free speech.
Do you say GB News? Yes. Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Between us and everyone, so people can get through who are involved and not involved in the protest, to keep people out of the road, just for safety. That's fine, but we want to keep people moving.
GB News off our streets, you ain't going to talk to anyone.
Don't speak
to GB News! Don't speak to GB News! Don't speak to them! Don't talk to GB News! GB News! GB News!
Get a real job!
I should also say that one of our members of staff, a cameraman, was assaulted by a protester today down in London. This has been reported to the Metropolitan Police, as well as accusations of harassment from two people down in the capital who were attempting to obstruct GB News journalists carrying out their jobs. They did ask for help from police down there, but to be quite honest, they weren't very helpful, to say the least, despite witnessing some of the above behaviour. However, we did manage to speak to a few down at the protest, and here's what they had to say.
Like a lot of people, I'm here today to express our disquiet at the way in which the Supreme Court judgment has been misinterpreted. It only applies to the Equality Act, it doesn't apply wider, and secondly, it does not require institutions to exclude trans people, it merely gives them the option.
Trans women are women.
Do you want trans women in single-sex spaces? Is that what it is?
I think they should be wherever they want to be.
The new legislations saying that trans women aren't women are like diabolical.
I have absolutely no regrets. Being trans has been amazing. I've met amazing people. The journey that I've been on, it's been quite difficult. I've been attacked a lot for being trans. I think as long as you're not hurting another human being and you're following the letter of the law, you should be able to say what you want, do what you want, wear what you want, and kiss who you want, as long as you're not breaking any laws. I'm about the free speech.
Tell me why you're here today.
Well, I booked tickets to London Dungeon, and me and my friend are having a little wander around, so just thought I'd see the old Parliament, you know. I support everyone's right to live, yeah. I don't know, I think it's just important to be open-minded, you know.
All right, I'm joined by former Olympic swimmer Sharon Davies, and indeed not just Olympic swimmer, now Sharon, in my view, a heroic women's rights campaigner. Thank you for your company this evening. Look, down at the protest today, there were, among the placards I've already mentioned, there were other signs saying, "I will make you listen," whatever that means, "babies for trans rights," and there were 7 statues defaced by members of the protesting group, including one of Millicent Fawcett, the suffragette. And I will say it's after the watershed. One of the, a bit of graffiti on that statue said "fag rights." What do you make of the scenes we've seen today, Sharon?
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine if those are the scenes that you saw on Wednesday by those incredible women, you know, that were at the Supreme Court? I mean, the problem is this is just one way. This is the behavior. I mean, you know, I've been trying to get equality in the world of sport based on science and peer-reviewed studies and the history of the Olympics, where every single race shows us that males and females perform differently. And the abuse that I've had and the death threats to my children and the calls to every single job and charity that I work with, it's just extraordinary, all right? And so this is a men's rights movement at the moment, and women are just being silenced, and they're being called every name under the sun to try and shut them up. And all we've been asking for the first 5 years was for debate, you know, to actually be heard in a civilized, respectful way. That was really difficult to get. And then once we started to get it, because our facts were based on actual facts, the Supreme Court ruling was clarification of the Equality Act. It wasn't anything else. It wasn't changing anything. You know, it was just actually interpreting it the way that it was supposed to be interpreted. And in fact, it's been misrepresented for an extremely long time. And I can tell you categorically that I've been working with sports organisations that know, and they've been told that this has been deliberately misrepresented, but Stonewall in particular have been doing it, and they have felt frightened to do anything other than to cave into the trans activists. So what they've done is they've fudged it and compromised by you know, in some instances, if we've been able to do it, they protected the elite 1% of women's sport, but not 99%. So not the pathways, not the juniors, not the recreational. You know, so they're basically gone, well, you 1%, you're good enough and worthy enough. We'll give you fair sport, but you 99%, you're not worthy. We're not going to give you fair sport. We're just going to let you have unfair competition.
Will that change now after Wednesday?
I'm sorry?
Will that change now after Wednesday? We've seen so many different organisations and employers, for example, British Transport Police, they've now said that trans women won't be able to frisk and search biological women, for example. Will anything change in sport, Sharon, in your remit as a result of this?
It should do, because now there's clarity that says that we are on the right side of the law, and so therefore we can start bringing legal challenges, which we were very much hoping to do just before the elections, because we've been speaking quite a lot with Kemi Badenoch about clarifying the Equality Act with the Conservatives, using the word biological. That's all they needed to do in front of the word sex, because when it was written in 2010, everybody knew that sex meant biological sex. We didn't think we'd have to add that word, but then that word was going to need to be added. Then the elections was called and it never got done. So that's really what the Supreme Court has done. You know, they've clarified that situation. So now I'm hoping that every young girl and every woman is going to have their sport protected at every single level, every single ability, every single age, just as they should have done all along, really. You know, when I say that the world of sport is so dominated by men anyway, there are so many more opportunities for men in the world of sport. Women get 4% of the world's sponsorship dollar, okay? That's 50% of the world get 4% of the money. 96% goes to men's sport. And now we're not even allowed to have that fair playing field. You know, in the States last year, $1.6 million of women's prize money went to men, predominantly in cycling, where they can have circuits and they can, you know, they can be very, very successful.
What do you mean by that, sorry? It went to trans women?
Yes, went to men. You know, so I went to the men that I as women, so they are men, okay?
Yeah.
So that's $1.6 million worth of women's prize money that went to men, and in this country, £48,000 worth of prize money in the world of pool has gone to men that should have gone to women. Yeah. So it's a financial situation as well, you know, that you're opening the door for. I mean, I just want to give you one statistic, all right, which is out of my remit a little bit. Obviously, I know stats on sport really well. But the Ministry of Justice in 2019 released these stats for prisoners. And this is why women are frightened. Right? This is why women want to have their toilets and their private spaces protected. 125 sex offenders amongst women, 3,812. That's 3%, 3.3%, all right? In the men's population, 13,000 out of 78,000. That's 16.8%. Now, there's a reason why we have separate men's and women's toilets, all right? Because of that. The percentage of sex offenders from trans women, 58.9%.
Well, Sharon, that's interesting because later in the show, viewers will see I went to Brighton yesterday and spoke to some people about the ruling, and I spoke to some people who said that simply doesn't happen. They said there's no such thing as trans offenders. They're such beautiful people. They just want to live their lives. And one young lady was telling me she had a trans partner, and viewers will see the clip later on. They're saying it just doesn't happen. And I said, well, what about Isla Bryson, the infamous Scottish example? And she said, well, that's just one. That's just one. It's not the majority.
That's not what the stats of the Ministry of Justice will tell you. You know, and that's why we need to use genuine stats. That's why we can't mess data up by saying that people can just select what gender they are when it comes to actually putting in correct data. Because at the end of the day, you know, that means that men will not be getting their prostate checks and women will not be getting their ovarian cancer checks. We need to understand that biology is real. What we do need to do is make sure that there is room for everybody. We need to make sure that sport has room for everybody, no matter how they want to identify. And we need to make sure that there's bathrooms and changing rooms for everybody. And it really can't be beyond the wit of man for us to be able to do.
I know, it seems such a... When you really simplify the debate, it just seems so juvenile. It's just make a third toilet, make a third changing room where people can congregate, and make a unisex changing room alongside women's spaces where they can go and live their lives with dignity and privacy as well. Just finally, Sharon, after seeing these kind of placards today at the protest in London, we've already gone through them, I won't repeat them. Are you fearful as a TERF? Are you fearful for your safety?
I mean, I've got pretty thick skin, and I've, you know, I made my choices, and I decided that was either all in or all out, so I was all in. It was difficult when you get threats against your children. That really does tend to hurt quite a lot. What I would say is you used the word juvenile then, and I think today was extremely juvenile. You know, to stand there peeing all over statues and graffitiing statues that were all about women's rights. I mean, this particular woman fought really hard for divorce, for education, for employment rights. You know, she did wonderful things for women. How can you be someone who could call yourself a feminist and do that?
Yeah. Sharon, thank you for being so eloquent as always. I really appreciate your company and your expertise, and hopefully we catch up soon. Have a great Easter weekend with you and your family.
Bye.
See you. Right, let's get the thoughts of my panel now. Journalist and communications advisor Linda Jubilee, the former Met Police detective Peter Blexley, and the former Labour advisor Matthew Larser. Good evening, panel.
Good evening.
Happy Easter weekend.
Happy Easter to you.
Happy Holy Saturday. Have you filled your boots with chocolate today?
Never
it's tomorrow, isn't it?
It's tomorrow.
Sorry, sacrilege. I apologise. Right, let's talk about more pressing matters. Matthew Larser, what did you make of the scenes? Well, first of all, the Supreme Court ruling, we've covered it a lot this week, but also the scenes today in central London.
Yeah, I mean, look, I thought the scenes were, you know, highly regrettable. I mean, even if you agree with the point of view of the protesters, as Sharon was saying there, you know, attacking the statue of Millicent Fawcett, a feminist icon, legend, is just not the way to do it. Now, the protesters would say there's a lot of anger out there. I know people who went on the protest. I don't necessarily agree with them, and I hope that they weren't the ones who were defacing statues. Then there is a concern from the 8,000 people who have gender recognition certificates. That's 8,000 people in the 20+ years that it's done, about what, you know, and these are people who, this is not, you know, anybody just deciding that they want to change their gender. This is people who went through the processes enshrined in law. What's going to happen to them now? Where will they go when they're put into hospital, etc. I think you can understand those concerns, and what we need is a sensible debate on all sides. But what we saw today wasn't a sensible debate. Yes, it was anger, but it was just channeled in a really, really unconstructive way, and you know, and it just did the harm of the cause of trans people harm.
Linda, as the sorry, I should have gone to you first as the lady of the panel.
Sorry, no mansplaining.
That's 2 gaffes within 15 minutes. Let's carry on as we intend. What do you make of today?
What I think is, you know, to reference what you said, Matthew, daubing with paint the statue of Millicent Fawcett, who was one of the leading suffragists, is so deplorable in any circumstance. But in this circumstance, it is absolutely defeats me. I cannot weave any logic into it at all. I mean, those suffragists, at least 2 of them died for what they believed in. They were force-fed in prison with rubber hoses because they refused to eat. They played a notorious cat-and-mouse game with putting them into prison, getting them out again, arresting them as soon as they left prison. And we see these people today daubing that statue. I mean, as a feminist myself, which is what I am, I found that absolutely deplorable.
Yeah, horrible scenes. Peter Bleksley, lots of people down there today, I mean, a few of them were carrying Palestine flags. And I didn't go down there myself, a colleague did, but looking at the footage and also the quite hostile response, it reminded me of all my run-ins with the Palestine lot over recent months. Why are they so aggressive and hostile? I know Matthew Larser says that it's an important issue, some people consider it life or death, but why do that side of the argument on all things always end up being so aggressive?
Because they're infantile cretins. That's why. When I was coming here this evening, one of them put a poster scribbled on cardboard, right, and they'd stuck it near the entrance to the underground station that I walked down, and they were blaming the Labour Party for this. It was Labour has abandoned all women. You see, these stupid numbnut idiots don't even realise where the rulings come from. They've failed to grasp the fact that this would be a very important, not to mention correct precedent in law, and they're all just going to have to get their heads around it. Mind you, looking at some of them, they need their heads examined.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Never shy of pulling your punches, Peter. How do you manage these kind of people in a policing sense?
Well, if they break the law, they'll have to be arrested and charged.
That's not the case, as we've seen with Palestine protests, where Jews, for example, have turned up at protests or gone to walk through protests. It's always the Jews' fault. They shouldn't have been in the area.
Yeah, exactly. I suppose today they probably just blame men, you know, if not judges from the Supreme Court. But once again,
whoever defaced the statues did break the law.
Yeah, but here we have today the Metropolitan Police clearly being afraid of a bunch of men in frocks, and they won't act when they break the law. I mean, it's pathetic.
Matthew, do we need to get tougher with this kind of behaviour?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'd say to the people who are doing that, just think if it was the other way around. If this had been a group of supporters of Tommy Robinson or any sort of right-wing cause and they defaced Millicent Fawcett's statue, the left, and I mean the left in the broadest sense, liberal opinion, would be up in arms. That liberal opinion needs to be equally up in arms about the people who did it today.
OK, interesting. Great start. There is some more trans coverage later in the show. Maybe fortunately or unfortunately, but I went down to Brighton yesterday and I had some very, very interesting conversations with locals, including one person who is, they said they were transitioning from male to female, and they had some interesting comments. That will come at 9:45, so bit of a break until then. But for now, time for the Great British Giveaway, our biggest prize to date, and your chance to enjoy as many getaways as you like in your very own, drumroll please, 4-berth motorhome worth £67,000. Here's all the details you need to win.
Don't miss out on your chance to win our biggest prize package ever, worth over £72,000. You could spend your summer touring the beautiful British Isles and exploring the great outdoors in this Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. This brand new 2025 model, supplied by our prize partners Marquis Leisure, sleeps 4 people, has its own integrated kitchen and bathroom and a living space that can accommodate up to 5. Plus, we'll also give you a £5,000 cash boost to kit it out and make it the perfect home from home for you and your family. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Very good luck to you. If you do decide to enter, let me know where you imagine yourself touring in the motorhome. I said earlier today, I did a show this afternoon, I'd love to go up to the north of Scotland for our version of Route 66, which they call the something 500. Linda, are you aware of it? The Route 500. Anyway, I can't enter, but you can, so good luck. Coming up next, one of my favourite stories of the day. Boxing legend Chris Eubank Sr. has publicly berated his son, calling him stupid for ignoring his advice. But would you ever call out your own child, your own offspring, publicly for bad behaviour? You don't want to miss this clip. It's a clip that I've absolutely been obsessed over the past 24 hours. I'm going to share it with you in just a tick. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point.
Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point.
He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight. Now, Chris Eubank Sr., the former boxer, has called for his son's highly anticipated bout with Conor Benn to be cancelled due to fears he could suffer brain damage. The boxing legend admitted he's concerned Eubank Jr. could face a similar fate as that of his former opponent, Michael Watson, who was left in a coma and with significant brain damage after their rematch in 1991. Eubank Sr. has publicly called out his son's stupidity, though, over the past 24 hours for ignoring his advice and only being driven by money, as well as for his onstage antics, including the shocking moment in which he smashed an egg on Conor Benn's face during a press conference. Let's take a listen to what Chris Eubank Sr. had to say about his son.
Eddie Hearn and Ben Shalom saying, why aren't you with Eubank Jr.? Why aren't you part of the Fight Week activities? Why aren't you in the corner?
Because I will not be an accomplice to their stupidity, to their circus. Junior, you're smashing an egg against this guy's face. I taught you that. I didn't teach you that. Who taught you that? Did Karen teach you that? That's disgraceful. I'm gonna stand in your corner. You must be mad. You must be mad. I would never be in your corner. You're a disgrace. You're smashing an egg in someone's face, and then you're trying to justify it. There's no justification for that. There's nothing noble about that.
Oh, I love him, don't you? I love Chris. What a man, what a legend. Good boxer as well back in his day. The big question tonight is Chris Eubank Sr. right to call out his son publicly in that manner? I'm joined now by parenting expert and mother Annette Kello and the campaigner and father Ken Hines. Good evening to you both. Thank you for joining me. Annette, let's start with you. What do you make of Eubank Sr. calling out his own son like that? His main gripe was because Eubank Jr. smashed an egg round Conor Benn's head during the press conference. He was saying, as you saw, who taught you that? I didn't.
Good evening. Yes, that was quite an expensive egg, wasn't it? Because it cost him 100 grand, apparently. But I do think, as a father, Chris Eubank has every right to express his personal and professional opinion. We have to remember this isn't his first time at the rodeo. He knows the industry inside out. And there's lots of different clauses in the contract with the rehydration, and the Board of Boxing control what they've said about it. So he's believing that they're not complying with all the regulations. So I think there's a deep-rooted fear going on from that, and who can blame him for calling him out? And also, he has tried to talk to him privately, but apparently it hasn't got anywhere, so this is why he's gone public.
So is it right then that a parent, I mean, let's talk about you as a mother. Would you ever berate or tell off your child in public if they did something wrong? For example, if they, I'm not sure they wouldn't because they're probably nice children, but if they whacked another child or something, would you publicly berate them?
Absolutely. I think there's nothing wrong with a little bit of shame, I'm afraid. I'm all about the tough love vibe. And I think that's what he's doing here. He has tried maybe the softly approach, and he's trying to just bring him up to speed with what's going on. And he feels he's not listening to him. So it's a public approach.
Ken, what do you reckon? Some people are saying that you should never treat your offspring like that in public. Have a quiet word behind doors, but don't throw your own son under the bus like that.
I wanted to Eubank Senior and Junior. He should never have thrown his son under the bus in the way that he's done. And this is recorded for cool heads, for him to be having a conversation behind closed doors, and nonetheless, because I believe Junior, his son, would have respected him a lot more if he had took that approach rather than exposing him in that way. Because no doubt he does feel a bit of shame in what he's done. And I believe that he will, in time, and take some sort of payback in the sense of community work to show that, that he needs to do something beyond what's normal.
Yeah, interesting. Annette, do you think more parents these days should be willing to run the gauntlet, I guess, and publicly call out their children when they do wrong? Should there be more responsibility from parents instead of just kind of offloading it to teachers and so on?
Yes, that's a really interesting point, because I think these days people do rely on other people to bring up their children. And I think a lot of it is about having respect, being kind, being courteous. In Chris Eubank, he's very eloquent and he always tries to explain what he means. And I think he has explained in this case what his fears are. And I think it is coming from perhaps maybe trauma as well. But I don't think there's anything wrong with a little bit of berating in public. I think it does them good.
Yeah, no, I think I'm with you. Ken, are you a father? Oh, I think your connection's a bit dodgy. It's been knocked out. It's been KO'd. Annette, thank you. I think we'll leave it there because Ken's connection's a bit dodgy. Thank you so much for your expertise, though. I'm with you. I quite frankly, I couldn't care less whether it was my son or whether it was just a friend. I don't think blood really comes into it. I think when there's a level of respect that's required amongst society, whether it's your family or not, you need to be able to have the confidence to call people out. And in fact, even more so if it's your child, because as I can sympathise with Chris Senior, it's his own offspring. And for me, that's why he's standing there saying, I didn't teach you this. Karen, his stepmother, didn't teach you this kind of behaviour. So I guess I can sympathise as a father. Chris is probably worried that, you know, people are wondering about his own parenting ability. So I fully sympathise. Just a few messages on your say. Tasha Wilson, good evening, Tasha. You've said, I love Chris, he's definitely right, but he should have had a quiet word behind the scenes, not air his son out. And Yorkshire, you've said, yes, Chris Eubank was right to call his son out. There's a respect between boxers, and Chris's son didn't show his opponent any respect. There we go. Keep those coming in. gbnews.com/your say. Coming up, the search for Madeleine McCann gets another cash boost, with UK cops reportedly getting more than £100,000 to continue the search 18 years on from her disappearance in Praia da Luz in Portugal in 2007. Do you agree? Should this money be spent elsewhere, or do we need to continue the hunt for little Madeleine? This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
While Storm Hans has now eased off, it is still fairly unsettled across western and central areas of the Mediterranean. Some heavy rain and thunderstorms still continuing for parts of Iberia, areas of France, and some mountain snow is still over parts of the Alps as well. Out towards the east, though, it's generally a calmer picture. Parts of Greece and Turkey holding on to fairly fine conditions. So if you are looking for some sunshine at the moment, east is generally your better bet.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
And I would like to nominate you, Emily Carver, my wonderful wife, for being this week's Greatest Britain.
Oh, that's rather nice, isn't it?
I think you might know why.
Well, I mean, we are a family here at GB News, aren't we? I feel like a lot of our viewers feel that way too. A lot of our audience members may feel that way too. So, got a little motion picture to show you.
Yes.
How do you feel, Emily?
I've had one of these before, so you want to check everything, don't you?
Mm.
So yeah, there you go.
I can't wait to meet you.
So there you go. I mean, there were some annoyingly eagle-eyed people out there who seemed to know immediately, but I ignored those comments for a while before we got to this stage. But yes, 19 weeks, so it'll hopefully be a September baby.
Someone did ask, is it twins? No, that was the first thing I checked.
It was.
It's not twins.
And his feet are on the right way round, the stenographer told us, so there we go.
Touch word, God bless.
Nice to know there's a bit of lead in your pencil as well, Patrick.
What can I say?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News. Now, the search for Madeleine McCann has received another cash boost, with UK detectives reportedly getting more than £100,000 to continue the search. The money, approved by ministers in Parliament, will go towards the Met Police's Operation Grange, which is looking to solve the 18-year-long case surrounding little Maddie's disappearance. Well, joining me to discuss this is missing persons expert Charlie Hedges, formerly of the National Crime Agency. Charlie, good evening. Thank you for your company. Right decision, wrong decision? What's your take?
I think it's marvellous for the McCann family that they're getting so much support and funding. But what does concern me is that the latest National Crime Agency figures show that there were over 5,000 people unfound who are missing, but none of those are getting any of that money. Yeah.
I mentioned earlier today the case, just off the top of my head because it was so infamous, Ben Needham from COS in, was it 91 or 94? His poor mother, Kerry, has been searching for her little boy for decades, and I don't think she's had a penny from the taxpayers. Charlie, what will 100k do? Some people saying it wouldn't last a couple of months.
Well, it's not going to not a lot to spend by the police to get things done. Their resources are expensive. Because these things don't get the attention they need, we have a charity, Locate International, which does this purely on a voluntary basis, and we look for people who haven't been found because we recognise the police are hard stretched to do things, so we try to fill those gaps.
OK, just tell me, Charlie, as a missing persons expert, when somebody's been missing for so long, it's been 18 hard years for Madeleine's parents, Jerry and Kate, the chances diminish, don't they, year by year?
It gets increasingly difficult to find them as time passes. You say evidence disappears and leads are harder to follow. But there's still possibilities they can be found. So none of those cases that are outstanding should be forgotten, and we should be putting our maximum effort into doing that. And if we could have a small proportion of that, £13 million to help, that would be hugely beneficial.
Have you got any insight into this case? Have you had word on the streets? Have you got anything you can share with us which may give some of our viewers hope that Madeleine may be found one day?
Well, I've been close to it for most of the time. I've not actually worked on the investigation, but in my role at the National Crime Agency, I was very close to it. I think a huge investigation has taken place. A lot of time and money has been spent on finding her. It doesn't mean she won't be found, but those chances, as we say, diminish over time as it gets harder to find people.
Charlie, I, as a journalist at my old newspaper, did a couple of months in Portugal and Germany, particularly when Christian Breukner, the German's prime suspect in this case now, he's currently in prison in Germany for a separate sex crime, particularly when his name came to light. Do you reckon he's involved, from what you know?
Well, there are indications that he has involvement. The German police are obviously putting a lot of effort into trying to link him to this. And I think we should still hope that there is a resolution there and we find out whether he actually did play a part in Madeleine's disappearance. That case is still ongoing. There's still an opportunity for that to be brought to a conclusion. And given the amount of time that's been spent talking to him and continuing to keep him as a suspect, one would suspect that there is a significant amount of evidence, but maybe not quite enough yet, but hopefully it will be brought to a satisfactory conclusion.
Yeah, I mean, if you know about Christian Breukner, one thing's for sure is he's definitely a wrong 'un. But Charlie Hedges, thank you for your expertise this evening. Happy bank holiday weekend to you. Let's get the thoughts of my panel, Linda Jubilee, Matthew Larser and Peter Blexley. Linda, your thoughts on Madeleine, the case. 100k, money well spent, or is it just time to stop?
It's always very difficult to comment on this case because I'd like to say rationally, £100,000 is too much to be spending at this late stage after 18 years. But you've got to empathise to some extent with the parents who must still be completely torn apart. This is something from which they will never recover. But it is strange, because I covered the Ben Needham case, which is many years ago, was earlier, much earlier than Madeleine McCann. And he was never found, she's never been found. And you just think the chances now are so slim. Historically, in certain countries, it has happened that we found children that have been, you know, held captive in basements, in various small partitions in houses. That has happened. But I honestly think now, you know, the chances are very slim. I hate to say it, but the one thing I would say is, what I learnt from talking to many of the police officers investigating the case, is that Whereas lots of parents will think that it was Mark Warner, I believe, that was the holiday that she was on. Whereas most parents think, oh, that's really safe, that's nice and safe. We'll send our children to that because that's pro-children. Where do they think the predators head for? Because some of these child-friendly holidays in some of the biggest theme parks have to have the most strict procedures in place because that's where the predators
You just
head.
don't... I mean, as a parent, I don't think about when I'm booking a family holiday how many pedos are going to be roaming the water slides. I mean, I wouldn't think of it. Peter, what's your thoughts? Any insight into this case from your background at the Met?
Yeah, I've been to Praia de Luz and I've looked at on a number of occasions and I've walked from the apartment to where the parents and their friends were sitting having their tapas.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, the apartment that Madeleine went missing from was out of sight and out of earshot of those parents. If those circumstances had happened in the UK, those parents would quite possibly have been prosecuted for neglect. They paid a very high price for their neglect, but those kids, including the twins, remember, both of whom were younger than Madeleine, were out of sight and out of earshot. Appalling parenting. Moving on to the £100,000, that'll just about pay the wages of a detective sergeant and keep the lights on, you know, and maybe a DC as well.
What's the point then?
Well, enough so that if something comes out of proceedings in Germany, they can jump on a flight and go out there and say that they're doing something. And so it's about the optics of it all, really. In practical terms, 100 grand is nothing in policing terms.
Well, that was my feeling, Matthew Larzer. It is only 100k, which in the grand scheme of things is nothing, as Peter has just outlined. But you get the feeling maybe with this Christian Bruckner monster in Germany, they think it's him, the German cops, the Portuguese cops think it's him as well. You just think, you get the feeling maybe just 100k more just to kind of get to the end. Maybe they're very, very close to nailing him.
Yeah, you think that? I mean, it's interesting to hear what Peter's saying with his experience. That may be why they're doing it, because they think that there's one more move that might be necessary. Otherwise, I'd say, as you say, there are so many unsolved disappearances of children and young people. You have to wonder why this case has always been prioritised over the other. If she hadn't have been blonde with very middle-class, upper-middle-class parents, I'm not sure that 13 million would have been spent over time.
Why did the Nicola Bulley case get so much attention? I don't mean to digress, but there are some cases, you know this, Ben, that just press the right buttons and they attract. They're like a magnet, particularly for the tabloid press. And these days, for TikTok, Instagram, for the social media platforms, some cases generate that level of tension and some do not.
Wolters, the German prosecutor, is a fool because he went very public and said words to the effect of, we know who did it, but we just can't prove it. Well, knowing something and proving it are two very, very different things. And if that had been a British prosecutor saying that, it would have ruined any chance of a fair trial.
Well, there was also accusations that the Portuguese cops, in the hours after Madeleine was reported taken, they went trampling through the crime scene. They were smoking cigarettes all over the crime scene and absolutely ruining any chance of forensics.
Absolutely. The damage that was done on that crime scene by Uncle Tom Cobley and all traipsing through there with his size 11s on will never be known because what evidence did they destroy, damage or remove on the bottom of their shoes?
And can I just ask you, Peter, just very quickly, in cases like this, I've heard they shut barriers immediately. They have to act within hours of a phone call. Did that happen?
No.
No. And also, just finally, we need to move on, but the German cops as well. As you said, when they announced Bruckner, I was in Germany and they were searching his allotment in, I think, was it Hamburg? I can't remember. They're searching his allotment. We were allowed to go in there afterwards with a photographer. I'm pictured online in Bruckner's allotment, in his house, uplifting different crevices and things and so on. I mean, it was staggering, to be quite frank. But, yeah, fingers crossed we get an answer soon. A fierce and emotional debate. Lots of you messaging on your say now about it. We'll cover those in the next hour or so. Thank you, panel. A Home Office spokesman has said on this case the ongoing police investigation into the disappearance of Madeleine McCann, known as Operation Grange, is an operational matter for the Met Police. Ministers have approved a request to provide up to £108,000 for Operation Grange in 2025-26. That's in line with our special grant processes. Funding for Operation Grange is approved on an annual basis. There we go. Coming up, it's time for Ben Leo Unleashed in just a tick. Where do you think I've travelled to this week? I have already said. Were you paying attention? This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Well, for the rest of the Easter weekend, Easter Day itself should be fairly fine and dry for most of us, but rain unfortunately will return as we move into Easter Monday. So we've still got low pressure generally in charge over the coming days, but it will just weaken enough on Easter Day, as I said, to give a fairly fine day for many. But before we get there, for the rest of Saturday, still got some rain across parts of Northern Ireland and Western Scotland, but elsewhere should be a fairly quiet night. We will have some low cloud moving in off the North Sea, giving a fairly murky end to the night along eastern coast. So the clearest of the skies out towards the west, we could just see a touch of frost here as we start Easter Day morning. So having a closer look at Scotland first thing in the morning, a bit of an east-west split across the country. Eastern areas should be fairly fine with some spells of sunshine, but out towards the west we're still going to have this area of rain around, although it will start to break up as the morning goes on. A fairly grey and damp start also for Northern Ireland, but for much of England and Wales it should be a fairly reasonable start. Still that low cloud initially across the east and also potentially some showers down towards the south-east, but the low cloud and the showers will ease as we head towards lunchtime. So for much of England, Wales and eastern Scotland, it is going to be a fairly reasonable day. Maybe the best of the sunshine come the afternoon across parts of Wales and northern England. For Northern Ireland, still a good deal of cloud around here with some outbreaks of rain, and again, still some spots of rain for western Scotland too. But in the sunshine, highs reaching around 16 to 18 degrees, so pleasant enough for the time of year. Unfortunately, the fine conditions won't last as we go into Easter Monday, a very different story. Outbreaks of cloud and rain spreading their way eastwards. Probably hang on to the fairly fine conditions for North East Scotland for much of the day, and it will cheer up later also down towards the very far southwest. But the changeable theme will continue as we go into Tuesday and Wednesday, with temperatures around average but pleasant enough in any sunshine.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. Time now for Leo Unleashed, where I drag my backside out of the studio and travel around the UK to see what life is like in your communities, what's great about where you live, what can be improved, how is government policy affecting you. This week I visited what I've dubbed, and I think is widely accepted as, the trans capital of the UK.
This week in Unleashed, I'm in the trans capital of the UK and maybe even Europe, Brighton in East Sussex.
Hello, GB News.
Oh my God, I hate that station, but I'm just gonna...
You won't hate me. We're asking people about the Supreme Court ruling this week on trans women.
I think there's only two genders, and you're biologically a man or a woman, and any adjustment is something that I think is different. Got it.
I just think live and let live, to be honest with you. I'm not actually like that as a person.
Yeah.
Want to come in, guys? You coming in, aye?
You got ID, please?
I actually haven't, but I'm older.
You got ID, please, fella? No, I'm joking. I don't even work it. I don't even work it. Trans women,
I don't actually like rulings, to be honest with you. I just don't like it because you're actually alienating people, which a lot of us fought for.
So you're a male transitioning to a woman? So some people watching this might say, why can't you just do what you do, and people respect that and you have freedom to do that, nobody has a problem with it, but why can't you just use the men's toilets? Why do you want to share a toilet with women?
Because it makes you feel comfortable. It makes you feel like whoever I want to be, I can identify with that gender. And
should your comfort trump the comfort of biological women?
I don't think there are that many women that are actually comfortable by it.
I'm sorry, I believe everybody should be who they want to be, but I think whatever you're born as, that's what you are.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So you agree? Oh, why are you sorry?
No, because it doesn't seem right, does it? I mean, I'm not against trans people.
No.
I'm not against gays, not against anything like that. I just think whatever you're born as is what you have to be.
How did you feel seeing the Supreme Court decision this week? How did it make you feel as a trans person?
It kind of just made me feel like dejected. Like I was like, just kind of sad.
Can you understand, though, the case of gender campaigners, women who are saying that they want their spaces free from biological men? Do you sympathise with their argument?
I can understand it. I just can't get behind it. I mean, personally, I believe that we shouldn't have gendered bathrooms at all. It should be just gender-neutral bathrooms. But
got it.
I have got so many trans friends who are just the most beautiful people on this earth, and it makes me so upset. Like, I feel like I'm welling up now. Any kind of love for a community of people that are just trying to live, and like, why should that be taken away from anybody? Like, you don't have any kind of experience with that. You're not ever in a position where you're undermined or you've got hate coming towards you just for being who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
I don't actually agree with anyone being hateful. I just don't agree with it.
But is that being hateful, though? Just saying, as a woman, I'm not a woman, so I can't really speak for them, but a woman like J.K. Rowling saying,
But I want to know her story. Does she have any gay trans friends?
what is the point of them feeling uncomfortable when it doesn't actually affect them?
Well, it does affect them because they'd be sharing a toilet. Like you're like you're pretty. How tall are you? 6'1"?
Yeah.
Yeah, like you're a big person. Males are innately stronger, more powerful than women. You know, that's why male violence is an epidemic. That's why male-female rape is a problem. That's why women feel unsafe because
I wouldn't say that's why, but yeah.
Well, it is. I mean, it's a power thing. I mean, men can manhandle women. It's just a fact. That's why men are better at sport than women. They're faster, they're stronger, they're bigger lung capacity. You know, that's why women feel unsafe. We're just more powerful beings.
Do you not
agree with that?
No, I don't agree with that because I don't think that's a good analysis.
There we go, Linda. Not a good analysis. Women don't mind about biological men's at least, physicality.
Well, the fact of the matter is that he's right. Men have got bigger lung capacity. They've got denser bones. They've got denser muscles. That's why in sport the margin is so enormous that that all has to be levelled up. And I think Sharon gave a nod to that earlier on in this programme. It is threatening. I find it threatening. I would find it threatening to go into a toilet and have a man there who was noticeably dressed as a woman.
But that person there says you should get over it, you've got nothing to worry about.
Well, I've got no intention of getting over it, and he is not correct, and he has no place telling me what my view should be. So I think we need gender-specific toilets for sure, but I don't see why we can't just build unisex toilets as well. Why can we not do that?
Because it's very expensive and pubs are on their knees. You imagine going to a hard-up landlord of a boozer and saying, actually, you've got to build a third set of toilets now. That bloke in that green top you were talking to, he's got shoulders like a Russian shot putter.
He was big.
Right?
He was tall.
And he's claiming that he's transitioning. I mean, and he had no argument whatsoever. You absolutely demolished him. I think that young man needs to have a very long, hard think about who he is, what he's doing, and maybe he needs to get some medical advice.
But what does that mean,
Matthew?
transitioning, though?
Well, I think he's beginning his journey. He wants to present as a female. I don't know. Matthew, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you can see there that people who identify as trans feel under threat because of what's happened. But as we were saying earlier, this is a very small minority of people. It's 8,000 people who've got a gender recognition certificate. I think most of them have never presented difficulties because most of them have gone through the full and actually look like the gender that they've transitioned to. But I think what's happened is that because you've had radical activists using this as a football. You've had the idea that what's happened in the prison situation just got out of control. So in a sense, that guy should be blaming the excesses of his comrades, as it were, rather than women standing up for women's rights.
I know lots of people got outraged about the clip that was posted online with that chat, but I actually I felt a bit sorry for him because he's clearly quite you know, he's troubled. He's troubled. He wants to transition to become a woman. You know, he's got problems, and I just felt a bit bad that he is facing that. But I think women need to be respected, and that's what matters. Coming up, we'll get the first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages as the Guardian, Ed Miliband rather, in the Guardian, has torn into Nigel Farage and the Tories for peddling apparently dangerous nonsense and lies. Back in a tick.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Well, for the rest of the Easter weekend, Easter Day itself should be fairly fine and dry for most of us, but rain unfortunately will return as we move into Easter Monday. So we've still got low pressure generally in charge over the coming days, but it will just weaken enough on Easter Day, as I said, to give a fairly fine day for many. But before we get there, for the rest of Saturday, still got some rain across parts of Northern Ireland and Western Scotland, but elsewhere should be a fairly quiet night. We will have some low cloud moving in off the North Sea, giving a fairly murky end to the night along eastern coast. So the clearest of the skies out towards the west, we could just see a touch of frost here as we start Easter Day morning. So having a closer look at Scotland first thing in the morning, a bit of an east-west split across the country. Eastern areas should be fairly fine with some spells of sunshine, but out towards the west we're still going to have this area of rain around, although it will start to break up as the morning goes on. A fairly grey and damp start also for Northern Ireland, but for much of England and Wales it should be a fairly reasonable start. Still that low cloud initially across the east and also potentially some showers down towards the south-east, but the low cloud and the showers will ease as we head towards lunchtime. So from much of England, Wales and eastern Scotland it is going to be a fairly reasonable day. Maybe the best of the sunshine come the afternoon across parts of Wales and northern England. For Northern Ireland still a good deal of cloud around here with some outbreaks of rain, and again still some spots of rain for western Scotland too. But in the sunshine, highs reaching around 16 to 18 degrees, so pleasant enough for the time of year. Unfortunately the fine conditions won't last as we go into Easter Monday, a very different story. Outbreaks of cloud and rain spreading their way eastwards. Probably hang on to the fairly fine conditions for North East Scotland for much of the day, and it will cheer up later also down towards the very far southwest. But the changeable theme will continue as we go into Tuesday and Wednesday, with temperatures around average but pleasant enough in any sunshine.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with Skyroof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m, I'm Ben Leo, and breaking tonight on the front page of tomorrow's Mail on Sunday, shocking leaked WhatsApp messages have revealed Labour ministers are plotting to defy the landmark Supreme Court ruling on trans women as the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, braces for a front bench revolt. I'll bring you all the details in just a tick. Elsewhere on the Sunday Telegraph, they're also reporting that trans doctors can defy the Supreme Court ruling by hiding their biological sex. If you thought it ended, think again. The General Medical Council will plough ahead with this new policy of making it voluntary for medics to record data on sex. Also tonight, music to my ears. A school has banned smartphones from the classroom with transformative results. The school is that of the murdered teenager Brianna Guy, who says phones played a part in her death, and the head teacher says the ban has reduced stress levels and kids are absolutely loving it. And in tomorrow's Observer, all-out war, Labour versus Reform. Energy Secretary Ed Miliband has launched a blistering attack on Reform UK leader Nigel Farage, accusing him of peddling dangerous nonsense and lies about net zero. That's in tomorrow's Observer. Joining me this evening, journalist and communications advisor Linda Jubilee, the former Met Police detective Peter Bleksley, and the former Labour advisor Matthew Larser. Let's kickstart with the very first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages, and let's begin with The Independent. The headline reads, "Deadly ketamine killed my son, says bereaved mum." The headline reads, as the use of the drug has soared by 85% in 4 years. And by the way, if you don't know what ketamine is, it's commonly a horse tranquilizer. It is also used on humans sometimes. One mother has told The Independent of the irreversible bladder damage and crippling pain it caused her son and how he ended up taking his own life. The Sunday Telegraph, the Mail on Sunday. This is the big story. Ministers in WhatsApp plot to defy trans ruling. As the Supreme Court judgment piles pressure on Keir Starmer to protect women-only spaces, leaked messages reveal a revolt on the front bench. This is Labour ministers who are secretly plotting to defy that landmark ruling. Are you surprised? And the Sunday Telegraph, Zelensky, Vladimir Putin shatters own truce. The Ukrainians warn that the Russian leader cannot be trusted after he calls a Easter ceasefire. We'll have that very shortly. But panel, welcome back. Linda Jubilee, Matthew Larser, Peter Bleksley. Should we talk about this Mail on Sunday front page? It seems like a pretty big story. Just a few days on, Peter, from this landmark ruling, and it seems like Labour ministers are already plotting to defy the courts.
The government are revolting. There you go. As if we didn't know that already. Yeah, well, which means that the whole trans debate is going to rumble on then, if that's the case.
I'm so sick of it. I'm so bored of it.
Oh, likewise. But I'm going to celebrate tomorrow because I'm going round my mate's house to lay some turf. Boom, boom. But, yeah, the Supreme Court have made a ruling here. And so it's a very important judicial precedent. And people can whinge and moan and all of that, but wouldn't it be better if the mob, the tyranny of the minority mob, would just quieten down a bit so that the grown-ups in the room could start thinking about positive steps that could be taken to accommodate all.
Can I read you a quick paragraph from this breaking story? It'll be on your shelves tomorrow in your newsagents or shops. The Mail on Sunday. It says the government claimed to welcome the Supreme Court judgment on the trans ruling, but the exchanges on WhatsApp reveal the private fury on Sir Keir Starmer's front bench, with ministers planning to hold a meeting this week to, quote, decide a way forward and organise. Can you guess? Come on, let's play the lottery, you viewers at home as well. Can you guess the Labour minister who is named in this front page, who is a part of this plot, allegedly? Any ideas?
Well, it's Chris Bryant is the...
He's named.
Did you read the story?
I did. I would have guessed anyway. I mean, you know, I mean, Chris could... I mean, I've known him for decades, but he could cause trouble in a paper bag.
Do you think he's causing trouble here?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think what the government is going to get... I think this isn't actually the view of the most senior people in the government. It may have been a little bit, you know, more front than Blackpool, but at least the government was this week, people like Bridget Phillipson, who's the Equalities Minister, as well as Education Secretary, were saying that, you know, protecting women's only spaces, respect the judgment, let's put it into practice.
That's not what she was saying a few short months ago.
She would argue that they were consistent. Others would point to previous quotes, but at least that was their line this week. It was really clear. What Chris is doing in this WhatsApp group, which sounds to me, I'd be interested to find out exactly who else was in it, but it seems to me that these are people who are trying to make trouble with the front bench and the chair of the Equalities Commission.
Can I just say, anyone would think that we didn't have, you know, really big problems with economic growth, with money,
war
with
in Ukraine,
tariffs, with migration, with war in Ukraine. So what? Not only do you have this useless distraction, which is what it is, you also have ministers fragmenting themselves over an issue that simply is not worth it.
Reading this, Number 10 reading this will go absolutely crazy. Morgan McSweeney, the head in Number 10, the chief of staff, who's trying to fire all his guns, we're going to come and talk about it on reform, is going to be ballistic that some ministers have allowed themselves to... Also, why are they doing it on WhatsApp?
Yeah,
so what is Starmer and his famous discipline? What's he going to do then? Fire them all?
Yeah, well, I just expect to tell him to get off WhatsApp as quickly as possible. But if it comes out into public, that will become a test of his...
But Matthew, tell me, what is it they do not understand about we are on a crisis footing in this country? What do they not understand?
Look, I mean,
I don't think they care, to be quite honest with you. I mean, you've got record numbers of small boats coming across the channel. All Keir Starmer can talk about is smashing the gangs, which is clearly not working. How many gangs have been smashed? I mean, even if he smashed 100 gangs, the boats are still coming. So I don't think they particularly care.
I'd be interested to find out whether this was a group of LGBT ministers, which I think my instinct is it could be, because, you know, what you've seen is from some of the lesbian and gay, particularly the gay men in the government, have been slightly less forthcoming in their support of the Supreme Court judgment than that, because they feel that they're basically at risk of attachment to the trans lobby. I'm not agreeing. I'm just saying
that. Even if that was the group, what I'm saying is you've got 1 in 4 people in this country are economically inactive. There is not enough money going into the exchequer to fund this country.
And Labour rebellion on that this coming week.
Yeah, exactly. And we've got all these problems. We're getting towards a negative birth rate, like we talked about that last week, like they have in Japan. We've got massive problems in this country with more tariffs as well. And they haven't gone anywhere so far.
Linda, can I ask you, do you feel safe as a woman under this Labour government?
It doesn't make any difference to me what government's in control.
Because not just LGBT issues or trans issues, but you've also got, you know, thousands of unknown men from faraway lands crossing the channel, you know, posing a threat.
That is a problem.
Yeah.
And I worked with them, as you know, not with asylum seekers, but with evacuees from the Taliban, and some of them were fantastic, but some of them are very, very aggressive men who live in an aggressive culture where they do not value women the way I expect women to be valued. That is a problem.
OK.
Very sobering thought. Yeah, exactly. And, of course, we have thousands of them coming here, literally thousands this week. Undocumented, we don't know their backgrounds, we don't know their intentions, and the fact that they are roaming amongst us is neglect by this government and the previous government of the highest order.
Yeah, I agree.
OK, should we look at the Sunday Telegraph? There was a temporary ceasefire today in the war between Russia's invasion of Ukraine, let's call it. that Zelensky has accused Vladimir Putin of shattering his own truce. I think it was only 18 hours. Anyway, I'm going to park that because there's a story at the bottom here of the Sunday Telegraph. Britain needs us to defeat Islamists, says the Israeli minister. Israel's foreign minister has said it's clearly in the interest of Britain for his country to prevail in its fight against radical Islamists. In an interview with the Sunday Telegraph, the minister said the result of the conflict in the Middle East, including the war on Gaza, would influence Muslim communities in Europe. Douglas Murray, the author, and he's an academic, I guess, as well, he makes this case. I mean, he wrote a book on it some years ago called, was it The War on the West, saying that Israel is the last bastion of Western civilization.
Well, he's very pro-Israel,
Yeah.
is Douglas Murray, but that is certainly true. I think that there is a very, very big problem, a powder keg waiting to go off in this country, because we are not paying attention to Islamists, those people with a political, ideological position, and we have ignored it, and they are growing in number, and I don't wish to be alarmist, and as I've said before, I've been, I think, particularly supportive to evacuees from Afghanistan, but there is an undeniable problem that is not being addressed by security forces in this country. They know they're not addressing it.
Well, Peter, maybe you can answer this. I sympathise with our security forces because what was the stats some years ago? Was it there's something like 100 terror suspects for every one MI5 officer? Something like that. Anyway, it's completely disproportionate.
Well, you might say that you might have ignored it. Me and the people that I spend time with, my mates, members of my family and what have you, have not ignored it.
No, I know.
And are very much aware of the rise of Islam. And they are also aware of the rise of Islamists, OK? Particularly the imams, who you can search social media and find them very easily in this country preaching about when they grow in numbers and how they will take over and impose Sharia law in this country over my dead body.
And I agree with you, and thank you for that opinion. But nevertheless, we have, I think, 300 Sharia courts in this country.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what I mean is that those haven't been allowed to grow in number, and they are going to continue to grow in number and operate in parallel to our own legal system.
The lily-livered police and the politicians that won't do anything about it to protect the sovereignty of our legal system in this country. They roll over and they undermine it. I'm telling you, there will come a moment of reckoning, and I'll leave it at that.
Matthew Loza, Israel's foreign minister, said in this Sunday Telegraph interview, he said, he raised questions over the extent to which the Muslim Brotherhood is able to operate in the UK, pointing out that its activities are disallowed in some Arab states. He said Israel was on the front line of fighting the fight against Islamism. Also, by the way, it's very relevant to the story, that Labour MP today, is Ayub Makoub, what's his name?
Oh, yeah, that clown.
Saying that the Pakistani rape gang scandal was some right-wing narrative. Did you see that?
Well, I mean, he's just wrong. And I think the government would say he's just wrong as well. And, in fact, comments like that do incredible harm.
I haven't heard Keir Starmer say anything about it.
Well, you know, if I was Keir Starmer's spokesperson, I would be making sure that he did say it. But if he hasn't, let's hope he does. I mean, I think that this is it's a bit of chutzpah from the Israeli foreign minister. I mean, there's been condemnation by members of the British Board of Deputies, the leading Jewish representative organisation this week, of what Israel has done. I think you can be pro-Israel and concerned about the extent to which how the Israeli government's behaving, but he does raise a valid point that, as Peter says, as we're all saying, that Islamism, is a great challenge to this country. And what I've been worried about this week is the situation in our prisons. We saw with the Manchester bomber, but as the week's gone on, we've seen an awful lot emerge of other stories of basically in some prisons control having been lost of those wings that have got.
And some prison wardens have actually gone on record and said that they fear decapitation. I mean, that's dreadful.
The establishment, the police, the civil servants that run the prison service, unfortunately, and our politicians are afraid to tackle what needs to be tackled. And shame on them, because the longer it goes without being challenged and dealt with appropriately and properly, the situation will only worsen.
But Matthew, your lot, Labour, they're scared, aren't they, of dealing with the Muslim problem? Because, I mean, the likes of Jonathan Ashworth lost his seat by a couple of hundred votes to the Gaza vote, I guess. You've had the likes of Jess Phillips being harassed and harangued by people. To be fair, she won't even identify. Which I think is questionable. So Labour, they're a bit reluctant, aren't they, to get stuck into...
Well, I'm not sure about that, because, as you said, people lost their seats because of the stance that Keir Starmer took, because he did what he thought was right, not what was going to be popular with Muslim voters. So I think in terms of Gaza and Israel, he took a brave stance. They've got themselves into a terrible mess on grooming gangs. I mean, you know, Jess Phillips, I think, is untenable in that role, because, you cannot... Yeah, I think, look, the anger from MPs in red wall seats, and particularly from those seats where the grooming scandals took place, which actually, frankly, as Charlie Peters on this channel has found, are all around the country. It was real anger because people want answers, and they don't want a kind of pulling back once you've committed to an inquiry. So I think that, I think they've got to double down and actually get these inquiries on the ground, up and running. Otherwise, the calls for a national inquiry are just going to grow and grow and grow.
What you've got to have amongst the Labour Party is MPs that are prepared to put the issues of this country first. So a slight digression, but who is the Labour MP that says, for example, we've got to recognise cousin marriage? I mean, that is the most ridiculous thing I've heard. Because that is a leading...
Or the Pakistani airport, the Kashmiri airport.
Oh, the Pakistani... But the cousin marriage is particularly
It's much more serious
bad
than the Pakistani airport.
Because of the enormous pressure that will be on the NHS. I know it's already on the NHS with the number of children with disabilities, severe disabilities, that are being born. One of which I had to deal with in one of the hotels, who was fed via a nasal gastric tube. She will never even get into a wheelchair, and she was the second of two disabled children of 6 born to 2 first cousins who'd married. And there were loads of them. And I can understand it. They've come to this country. That's common practice in their country. But for a Labour MP to stand up in the House of Commons and say that this is OK, it's not OK.
It's not OK to say it's OK.
Medically, it's not OK.
Absolutely. And Labour's got to, if it's going to retain voters' trust, it's got to stand up for what we all know is right and common sense, no matter which voter group that impacts.
Just finally, Peter, Douglas Murray has written in the Telegraph and said society is being polluted by people who hate us. Is he right?
Correct. We are.
So what are we going to do about it? You said earlier, Peter, over my dead body.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, what are you going to do about it?
Remain tolerant, use my tongue as much as I can, raise concerns amongst those who I speak to, lobby, come on the media, speak with clarity, hopefully. People tend to agree a lot of the time with what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And make our politicians and our police officers do their jobs. Serve the public, us, the public. Don't give us all this nonsense that they've spewed out, getting on for decades now. Get a grip. Sharia law should not exist in this country.
Absolutely.
Those courts and those councils should not be allowed to operate. Grow a spine. Tackle the rape gangs. Go into these communities. Do not be afraid of unrest. Go in, do your jobs.
OK, great stuff. Stay tuned. There's some more papers coming, including this one from The Observer. Ed Miliband. Matthew Lyles, I'm going to quiz you soon about a potential reshuffle. When is the next reshuffle in government?
Well, I think we might see one in the height of the summer. I think after the local elections there'll be a reason to have a refresh.
After the local election bloodbath, maybe?
Refresh.
Maybe. There we go. Great answer. Yes, there's a good story in The Observer, which I'll share with you shortly, and we'll discuss. Ed Miliband taking aim at Nigel Farage, Richard Tice and Reform, calling them dangerous for their views on net zero, some of which you guys at home may agree with. Right, let's move on. Time for the Great British Giveaway. Your chance to win our biggest prize to date. It's a 4-berth motorhome, which I'm very jealous of. I wish I could enter, worth £67,000. You can go wherever the hell you want. You could drive all the way to Timbuktu if you want. Here's all the details you need to win.
Don't miss out on your chance to win our biggest prize package ever, worth over £72,000. You could spend your summer touring the beautiful British Isles and exploring the great outdoors in this Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. This brand new 2025 model, supplied by our prize partners Marquis Leisure, sleeps 4 people, has its own integrated kitchen and bathroom and a living space that can accommodate up to 5. Plus, we'll also give you a £5,000 cash boost next to kit it out to make it the perfect home from home for you and your family. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck to you. Coming up, Kevin Schofield will be taking us through more of tomorrow's front pages, including that Observer story about Ed Miliband. I fear for Ed Miliband. I think he's probably in line for the chop, you know, whenever this reshuffle comes, or the rebalancing. Is that what you call it, Matthew Garza? The refresh. And also, there's a story in the Sun newspaper, which is breaking in the last couple of moments. Cod Wars. Keir Starmer is preparing to cave in and give the European Union more of our fish, more of our cod and hake and whatever else in return for a defence deal. Do you agree with that? I suspect not. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
I can now speak with the founder of the blog Armed Forces Foundation, Colin Easterway. Colin, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. First of all, I always start, you're a former paratrooper, right? Thank you for your service. Tell us about your foundation, your charity, the work it does, and how people can come in and help you.
We started in 2020 during the COVID pandemic, when mental health was at the forefront of everybody's mind, and a lot of veterans in our area were finding themselves homeless. So we quickly adapted and we made a crisis prevention centre and started addressing homelessness along with veterans' mental health, giving them a place where they can reach out and get the vital support that they need. Since then, we've registered as a charity. We thought by now we would have been funded and maybe supported by our local authority, but that hasn't happened 5 years in. The new national pathway for Op4 to choose of veterans' mental health, wrong veterans' housing, along with the Op Courage for veterans' mental health. They also refer into us homeless veterans on a regular basis, but we haven't received any operational funding from them either. Also, with the level of referrals increasing every week, national charities, the big charities, the Armed Forces charities, Royal British Legion, Help for Heroes, constantly sending us homeless veterans to us, has put the level of output so high that we've run out of funding. Those major charities and those other organisations don't send any funding. They continue to send homeless veterans to us, which we have to crisis manage and try and find solutions. We have an ethos where no veteran leaves our office without a safe place to sleep that night, and we stand by that ethos. The larger charities have got onto that and start firing them into us, so we're really struggling.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back. More front pages have just dropped, but the big story in the Sun newspaper tomorrow, France is threatening to block Britain joining a new security defence pact to combat Vladimir Putin's Russia unless, get this, we agree to hand over new quotas of fish to the EU. Critics are warning the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, he'd be betraying Brexit if he sacrificed British fishermen to the bloc. Well, I'm joined now by the HuffPost's Kevin Schofield. Kevin, good evening. Thank you for your company. What do you make of this story? It's breaking in the last couple of minutes. Is Keir Starmer betraying our fishermen?
Well, it certainly looks as though, according to The Sun, as if that is the way it's heading in terms of Keir Starmer accepting this proposal from the French. This has been bubbling around for a few weeks, actually, Ben. We know that there's been talks about a defence pact between the EU and the UK. That's been held up by the French, basically saying, well, hang on a minute, we want to throw fish into the mix here. We're not going to allow your defence companies to get access to EU defence contracts unless you give us a deal on fish. And according to The Sun, anyway, it looks as though Keir Starmer, faced with that choice, whether it's the fishing industry or the defence industry, has sided with the defence industry. But I mean, a lot of people have been saying, I mean, there are bigger things at stake here. We're talking about potential world war.
Bigger fish to fry.
Well, bigger fish to fry, exactly.
Sorry.
So, you know, why are we being sidetracked into a discussion about fish quotas when surely the defence of Europe from potential Russian aggression is a much more serious matter?
I would argue, though, Kevin, and maybe the panel will as well, GB News went to some fishing towns, I can't remember where it was, the past couple of months, and all of the fishermen we spoke to were saying, look, since Brexit, where we were promised, you know, a bright new dawn for the fishing industry, we'd keep much more of our own fish, we'd have higher quotas, we wouldn't need to share with the EU. Actually, the theme of the day when we went and visited those towns was that they're worse off than before Brexit, and they feel a bit stitched up by whatever administration has been responsible for dealing with the Brexit deal. So, although in the grand scheme of things, yes, we need to focus on defence, actually our fishermen need some attention as well.
No, absolutely. The point I was making was, you know, why do we have to lump this debate about fish in with the defence debate? Surely they're two separate issues. But I mean, I remember going all the way back to the 2019 general election, fishermen in the northeast of Scotland saying they were going to vote Conservative because they'd been told, vote Tory, get fish. That's what they were told. That's back in 2019. It didn't work out that way, as you say, and you can understand why the fishermen are very unhappy about it, because that was one of the main reasons that they were told, look, vote for Brexit and we'll get more access to our own fishing waters, and obviously that hasn't quite panned out that way.
Yeah, just to inform viewers, I'll read you a couple of paragraphs directly from The Sun on Sunday tomorrow. It says, The Sun on Sunday understands the likely direction of travel is that Britain will do a fish deal in return for UK defence firms getting access to EU weapons contracts. An insider said if the choice is between a small industry like fish and a big industry like defence, the government should pick the big industry. Jacob Rees-Mogg has said, he's commented in the piece, the EU ought to stop carping and pay us for defence while the government must not flounder by betraying our fishermen again. And Brexiteer Steve Baker said, this is yet another lose-lose from Labour, with the EU taking on both counts.
Yeah, well, I mean, as I say, you know, why does the Prime Minister have to choose between a big industry in defence and a small industry in fishing? You know, these things surely are two completely separate issues, but the French have successfully, it would appear, managed to shoehorn the issue of fishing into this much bigger geopolitical issue of the defence of Europe, and appear to have Keir Starmer over a barrel, it looks like.
OK, Kevin, should we look at the Mail on Sunday? Big exclusive about this apparent WhatsApp group from Labour MPs. They are planning to revolt against the Supreme Court's decision to, well, defining what a woman is. It's you know, a biological female. What do you make of this? Chris Bryant is one of the Labour MPs or ministers who's been named in this. Not a good look for the government, and probably a headache for the Prime Minister as well.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I remember when Labour were in opposition and, you know, the Conservatives maybe weren't happy with Supreme Court rulings. Labour saying, well, it's the Supreme Court, you've got to abide by what they say. So, you know, if it's good enough when they were in opposition, then surely they have to follow the Supreme Court rulings when they're in government as well. I think, I mean, the detail is a bit light on the front page. You're right, Chris Bryant does get a mention as one of them sending messages into this WhatsApp group. I would be absolutely astonished if, in the final analysis, the government decides to in some way defy what the Supreme Court if anything, the Supreme Court has got the government off the hook a little bit on this. You know, they want to basically just put this issue to bed. Now, I don't think that's going to happen for a long time, but the idea that the government's going to try and continue this row by defying the Supreme Court, I'd be absolutely astonished if that's what happened.
Yeah, that's what I thought, Kevin. I thought on Wednesday, you know, finally, this years-long debate has come to an end. It's finished, but it just seems to have ignited it even further with 10 tonnes of dynamite. Kevin, just briefly, the front page of tomorrow's Observer, Ed Miliband in attack on Nigel Farage's net zero quote-unquote lies. Ed Miliband today tears into Nigel Farage and the Tories for peddling dangerous nonsense and lies by suggesting the UK's net zero target is responsible for destroying Britain's businesses, including the steel industry. Do you think Ed Miliband's got long for this, I was about to say world, but this Parliament, this government?
Well, there's definitely speculation, certainly, that he is at risk whenever the next reshuffle happens. It could well, as your other contributor was saying, and the summer, I think, is a good time for it to happen. There's a good chance it will happen then. Potential. I mean, he's still, you know, up until recently, certainly, Keir Starmer was foursquare behind Ed Miliband. However, if he starts to feel that his devotion to net zero is a political albatross around Labour's necks, particularly when they've got reform breathing down their necks. You know, if the local elections go badly for Labour, if they lose the Runcorn by-election, if there's a sense that net zero is one of the big issues, then you may well see Ed Miliband being reshuffled off.
Matthew Larser is here. He wants to ask you a question. Matthew?
Yeah, I mean, Kevin, Labour's obviously focusing its attack on reform ahead of the local elections. What do you think Number 10 will make about Miliband making net zero the number one top line on that, rather than what they've been trying to do, which is attack Farage over the health service?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's a little bit of danger of mixed messages there. Number 10 maybe don't want net zero to be talked about very much right now, especially if this message that the Reform and the Tories are putting across is, you know, this is what's pushing up your energy bills, or this is why British Steel is, or one of the reasons why British Steel is in the state it's in. It's very interesting, isn't it, that Labour are turning their fire so much on Nigel Farage. It's attack ad after attack ad, and they clearly see reform as a huge threat, as they're right to do so, right across the red wall. They're second in something like 90-odd seats at the last election. The Runcorn by-election, I think, at the moment, looks as if it's reforms to lose. So you can understand why they're doing it. But Nigel Farage is lapping it up. He is thoroughly enjoying the attention and is relishing this particular fight, I think.
Kevin, thank you for your company this evening. Really appreciate it. Hope you have a nice bank holiday and an Easter Sunday tomorrow, whatever you're getting up to. Thanks, Kevin Schofield, editor at the HuffPost. Should we run through the papers again? Let's start with the Telegraph, the Sunday Telegraph. Zelensky reads the headline, Putin shatters own truce. The Ukrainians warning that the Russian leader cannot be trusted after he calls a brief Easter ceasefire. Just on the right-hand side there, trans activist deface statue of feminist hero Millicent Fawcett. That was in the Capital's protest today. And just at the bottom, we've already discussed this, Britain needs us to defeat Islamists. That's according to the Israeli foreign minister. He also raised questions over to the extent to which the Muslim Brotherhood organisation is able to operate in the UK, pointing out that its activities are disallowed in some Arab states. But yeah, it seems like it's OK for the UK. The Mail on Sunday, we've just spoken about it with Kevin. Ministers in WhatsApp plot to defy trans ruling. Labour ministers seem to be plotting a revolt, including the likes of Chris Bryant, apparently. The Sunday Express, bending the knee to China risks UK security. Senior Tories have attacked Labour for bootlicking our adversary. It comes off the back of Rachel Reeves saying it would be very foolish not to engage with the world's second biggest economy, while she defended her visit to China with leading British companies. The Sunday Mirror. Shock figures on danger pets. Over 80 dog attacks a day. Campaigners demand reform as every county in the UK reports a rise. Police stats show attacks on the rise in every single county. Victims and charities want tougher penalties for reckless owners and dodgy breeders. And The Observer. Fear and despair rise in Gaza as 7-week Israeli blockade bites. They're reporting that Palestinians have been denied aid as bombs still fall. People are more afraid of famine than airstrikes, apparently. And again, we've already discussed this. Ed Miliband, the Energy Secretary, has attacked Nigel Farage and Reform UK for their quote-unquote net zero lies. Panel, should we talk about this Sunday Mirror front page? Something different. Over 80 dog attacks a day. I used to be terrified of dogs.
So did I. I was very badly bitten as a child. I've still got one tooth mark left on my back of my hand. I hate it when people don't train their dogs properly, they don't look after them properly, and I see a lot of it around. Now, I know I'm a mother, but my son has got a lovely golden Labrador. It took him nearly 18 months to train that dog because he wants the dog to be part of the family. Yeah. But so many people don't do that. It's so shocking.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this idea now that dogs... I think we've got a dog crazy. Yes, I know dogs mean a lot to a lot of people, but they have to be controlled, and dog owners have to acknowledge that there's loads of people who really don't like dogs, and therefore they need, in public, you know, they need to be restrained.
I've got used to it now, though. I've got used to the dog because he's well trained, he's affectionate,
absolutely.
He's part of the family.
But they can't be running riot.
I love all animals. I'm more of a cat person, and I've got used to dogs as I've got older. But I was chased by a rabies-ridden dog in Greece when I was very small. Bit traumatic. I was in the walking through the park the other day with my boys, and there was I felt so sorry for him. There was a builder on his lunch break. He was about to tuck into his sandwich. You could tell he was really sort of appreciating his few minutes off work. And this, I think it was a Jack Russell, sprinted up to him and took a chunk out of the sandwich. The owner of the dog was a sort of 60 or 70 years old. She had trouble walking. She had a walking stick, and it was off the leash. And the builder was just saying, for goodness sake, keep your dog on a lead. And I felt sorry for the owner, actually, because she was so apologetic. But the builder as well, it was kind of a black comedy moment. Maybe not. I think people just about to tuck into the sandwich and the dog comes up and just takes it.
Yeah, people have to acknowledge that, you know, it does take a lot of effort to do a dog. I was in a Wetherspoons earlier today, and there was a guy with a frame and his wife, a very elderly, fragile guy, and they had a dog, and the dog was kind of running around, and the poor guy ended up falling over. Yeah. It was too much for the lady to cope with. People have got to realise how much effort it takes.
There's two things I can't stand: poorly trained children and poorly trained dogs.
I agree.
If you're going to have either, train them properly.
That's right, but I'm saying you put the same effort into training the dog as you would into raising a child.
Yeah.
And acknowledge that both can be wrong at times, which is often people don't do. My little, you know, Rufus the dog can't be right. Never mind Rufus, my little kid. They both can be wrong.
Yeah, I'd like to get a cat for my boys, but the wife won't have it. She says no, she's too scared of cats. Anyway, just because it was mentioned here as a list of all the candidates in the Runcorn and Helsby by-elections, so we have to do this for Ofcom purposes. Danny Clark from the Liberal Party, Chris Copeman from the Green Party, Paul Duffy from the Liberal Democrats, Peter Ford from the Workers' Party of Britain, Sean Halston from the Conservative Party, and Karen Shaw from the Labour Party. Michael Williams, who is an independent, and, of course, Sarah Pochin, how do you pronounce it, Matthew?
I don't know, actually.
I think it's Pochin, from Reform UK. Sarah Pochin from Reform UK. Coming up, more newspapers coming in just a tick, and we'll be getting stuck into our weekend fails, which, if you're not familiar and you're new to the show, we'll pick a moment from the week which we thought was a pretty epic fail, and we share it with the group. Back in just a tick.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
While Storm Hans has now eased off, it is still fairly unsettled across western and central areas of the Mediterranean. Some heavy rain and thunderstorms still continuing for parts of Iberia, areas of France, and some mountain snow is still over parts of the Alps as well. Out towards the east, though, it's generally a calmer picture. Parts of Greece and Turkey holding on to fairly fine conditions. So if you are looking for some sunshine at the moment, east is generally your better bet.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, Weekdays from 3 p.m.
Thames Valley has introduced equity training, which covers topics including white privilege plus microaggressions. And of course, yesterday, West Yorkshire Police were barring white British people from jobs. What on earth is going on? Well, let's bring in the Surrey Police and Crime Commissioner, Lisa Townsend. Lisa, welcome to the show. A pleasure to have your company. From West Yorkshire to Thames Valley, they seem to be absolutely consumed with some kind of woke mind virus. What's going on in our police forces?
Good afternoon, Martin. Good to be on again. Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. And it's different police forces. And I don't think actually it's fair to blame any individual force for this or any individual sort of chief constable or officers, because I think this is something that's actually coming from the top of policing. And we've seen it now quite a few years. I mean, critical race theory, something we've been talking about relatively recent history. Actually, it's been around for about 40 years. And I think this, what we're seeing now actually, is this kind of coming to the fore. But we do see it right from the top. You know, the National Police Chiefs Council, Gavin Stevens, who is currently chair of the National Police Chiefs Council, was my chief constable in Surrey, you know, and he is surrounded by people. It's not fair to say it's just Gavin either. He's surrounded by people who believe this. And we are seeing it, unfortunately, right across our public institutions. And let's be honest, Martin, a lot of our private ones as well. But I do worry about it when it starts to take a hold in policing.
What's causing it? Is it some kind of guilt complex for historical wrongdoings? I mean, where does this come from?
I think it's a lot of that, and I think it is linked to the wider issues that you and I, Martin, have spoken about before, whether that's around, you know, supporting trans men and women within the force, supporting gay people, which of course we should be doing. And I do think a lot of this comes from a history that policing has.
GB News, the People's Channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Welcome back. Two more papers have just dropped. Let's start with The Sun on Sunday. The headline reads, TV exclusive, The Apprentice stars rogue trader probe. The champ, Dean Franklin, is at the centre of a rogue trader probe over his show-winning business. And at the top there, not sure if you guys care, actually, but Beck's at 50. He looks all right, doesn't he, for 50 years old?
Too many tattoos.
I'm 50 this year, and I don't look as good as that with my bit off. But I won't strip just to prove it.
But too many tattoos.
No, you don't like tattoos?
Oh, no, I think they look terrible.
Yeah. Actually, sorry to bang on about Japan again. Did you know I went to Japan?
Did you go to Japan?
They hate tattoos over there. We went to the gym on our second day, and my friend, who's absolutely tattered to the nines, sleeves and everything on the legs, he had to cover up completely. It's a deep cultural thing. And also in the swimming pools there, we went to a public swimming pool, he had to wear a wetsuit to go swimming. And when they told us this, we were kind of like, that's a bit strange. But do you know what? After maybe 10 minutes, we thought, actually, no, this is your culture. We respect it.
That's right.
No problem. No problem.
Yeah. Do you want another Japanese fact? No roundabouts. When people come from Japanese executives at Nissan, go to the plant in Sunderland, the first thing they have to teach them is how to use a roundabout in Sunderland.
True. I didn't notice any roundabouts.
Okay.
Random fact. The Sunday Mirror, one more paper. Oh, no, we've had that, haven't we? Over 80 dog attacks today. There is a story in the Sunday Mirror which I want to talk about with the panel. This school of murdered trans teenager Brianna Guy has introduced an all-out phone ban. So at the start of each day, pupils come into class and they put their mobile phones into pouches. They do not touch them for the rest of the day. And the head teacher there, who is called Emma Mills, she's told the Sunday Mirror that morale, student moods, focus, attention is at all-time highs. And actually, it's made pupils realise that they can survive how long's the school day? 8 hours without their phones, and they say that, you know, they wish they'd done it sooner.
And Emma Mills also says there's a really important element here, that it has increased the conversation. That is something we really need to encourage in youngsters, is actual conversation. Otherwise, they go all the way through their school lives, and then when they're faced with the prospect of a job interview, they're absolutely terrified about any engagement.
No, just absolute mute. Would you support a nationwide phone ban? I think Kemi Badenoch's called for it.
I think the nicest part of this story is that we can say that Brianna's death was not in vain.
Yeah.
Because something very positive has come out of it. Let's hope it's rolled out across the nation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Matthew, you back that as well. What's Labour? Has the government?
It's flirted with it, but Australia, the Labour government in Australia has basically done it, and so they're kind of looking to see how it works there before they finally go for it. Maybe they should take the lesson from this school and from Brianna's mum and go for it without having to wait for what happens down under.
Why is it so difficult just to put phones in a locker or a pouch for the day? Why does that
You have to do it when you go into Downing Street. Unless you're a pass holder, you have to put it in the little slot, don't you?
You've got to put your phone away.
So let's start the other way around. What is the case for students having phones at schools? What's the benefit?
There isn't one.
Parents,
Yeah,
a lot of parents say that they want to have a phone so they can get contact, but they don't need to have it all during the school day. They're not saying don't have a phone, they're saying don't have it in class.
If it's an emergency, you ring the school office.
Well, that's in my day, that was the same, wasn't it?
They still have phones in the school office. Right?
Exactly right.
Yeah, I mean, it's
exactly
bizarre.
Right.
There was never phones in my day at school. You know, I'm a little bit younger than you guys, but if a parent needed to get hold of you, they'd call the school office, a teacher would come in, and, you know, hopefully it was an occasion where you had to go home for something, and you'd go, yes, out a lesson. But, yeah, I feel very sorry.
Not worrying it was a family tragedy, just thinking I'm glad I've got the afternoon off.
Just want to go home, catch, what was it?
Neighbours.
Yeah, Neighbours or something, yeah. Anyway, moving on, take a look at this viral video. Have you guys seen the film Final Destination? It's all about fate and, well, death, actually, quite frankly. But take a look at this very, very near miss of this clip. Yeah, take a look. So, yeah, I think that's possibly in Australia that it was doing the rounds today. I mean, goodness me, if you needed a reason to thank your lucky stars.
Yeah, wow, that is such.
Well, I mean, talking of people, close shaves. On the front of the Sunday Times, apparently the cable car driver of the tragedy that killed 2 Britons was saved by a cup of coffee. He was set to drive the cab that plunged 100 feet into the ravine before a colleague stepped in so he could finish his coffee, and that's why he's still with us.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned that story today. An awful story, and actually one of my biggest fears. I hate cable cars. I hate them. I close my eyes when we go up to the top. My wife takes the mickey out of me, and then I breathe a massive sigh of relief when we're back. But yeah, is it 2 Brits that have died in that Naples cable car?
Brother and sister. Well, I think the brother was 65 and the sister 58, or the other way around. Yeah, very tragic.
Terrible. God bless that family this weekend. Yeah, we're thinking of you. Anyway, coming up, time for Big Weekend Fails. It's the part of the show where the panel and myself, we pick a part of the week which we think was just an absolutely epic fail. A travesty, in fact. Stick with us. Back in just a tick.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Well, for the rest of the Easter weekend, Easter Day itself should be fairly fine and dry for most of us, but rain unfortunately will return as we move into Easter Monday. So we've still got low pressure generally in charge over the coming days, but it will just weaken enough on Easter Day, as I said, to give a fairly fine day for many. But before we get there, for the rest of Saturday, still got some rain across parts of Northern Ireland and Western Scotland, but elsewhere should be a fairly quiet night. We will have some low cloud moving in off the North Sea, giving a fairly murky end to the night along eastern coast. So the clearest of the skies out towards the west, we could just see a touch of frost here as we start Easter Day morning. So having a closer look at Scotland first thing in the morning, a bit of an east-west split across the country. Eastern areas should be fairly fine with some spells of sunshine, but out towards the west we're still going to have this area of rain around, although it will start to break up as the morning goes on. A fairly grey and damp start also for Northern Ireland, but for much of England and Wales it should be a fairly reasonable start. Still that low cloud initially across the east and also potentially some showers down towards the south-east, but the low cloud and the showers will ease as we head towards lunchtime. So from much of England, Wales and eastern Scotland, it is going to be a fairly reasonable day. Maybe the best of the sunshine come the afternoon across parts of Wales and northern England. For Northern Ireland, still a good deal of cloud around here with some outbreaks of rain, and again, still some spots of rain for western Scotland too. But in the sunshine, highs reaching around 16 to 18 degrees, so pleasant enough for the time of year. Unfortunately, the fine conditions won't last as we go into Easter Monday, a very different story. Outbreaks of cloud and rain spreading their way eastwards. probably hang on to the fairly fine conditions for North East Scotland for much of the day, and it will cheer up later also down towards the very far southwest. But the changeable theme will continue as we go into Tuesday and Wednesday, with temperatures around average but pleasant enough in any sunshine.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time now for our big weekend fails. It's our chance to pick a moment from the week which we think was just an absolutely epic fail of gigantic proportions. I'll go first. If you go on to covid.gov, that's covid.gov, it's a website. It's an official White House website which was launched in the past, I think, 24 hours, where, quite honestly, they have absolutely unleashed on the narrative we were fed during COVID. The Trump administration has called it a lab leak. They've gone to great lengths, if you scroll down the page, to dunk on Anthony Fauci, saying that he made up the advice about social distancing, saying that masks never worked, and basically the whole thing was a scam. And for COVID skeptics like me back in the day, oh, goodness me, it's good to see this. It's absolutely, it's brilliant, to be quite honest with you. Peter, you're up next. Let's have a quick look at your clip.
I think we'll be the first county in the country to do a education programme across every age group about crime, hate crime, respect and dignity, sexual offences, consent, driving offences. Importantly for me, not delivered by police officers but delivered by teachers. They'll build from 6 to 8 to 10 years old to 12 into their teens.
Who's that, Peter? What's he banging on about?
That Burke is Chief Constable John Robbins from West Yorkshire Police, speaking to a Saudi-funded channel about how he wants to get this programme into education, right? So he's branching out from policing and he wants to go into education now whilst wearing a police uniform.
Goodness me.
His ridiculous false, which is performing appallingly, he actually now, he's in favour of discrimination. He wants to introduce positive discrimination. He wants it on the statute book so that he can be prejudiced against people like me who's got a white face because he doesn't want him in his police.
Yeah, this was the white privilege force, wasn't it? And I think West Yorkshire Police is the most frequent or the most common for DEI hires. Over £1 million a year they spend on DEI hires.
Oh, astonishing, absolute eye-watering levels of money.
Good choice. Linda, let's take a look at yours.
It is the highest high, and it is surrender to the unknowns. You're like really finding the love for yourself because you got to trust in yourself on this journey, and then you're feeling the love when you come down for sure, and you're feeling that strength. So I feel really connected to that strong, divine feminine right now. By the way.
Why is that a fail, Linda? She went to space.
I cannot believe it. I cannot believe that people can be so lacking in self-awareness. I mean, she has spent $28,000 on an 11-minute ride, not even into space, to just under the edge of space. And then she says that has taught her, finally, about humanity. I would say, try joining an aid agency in Gaza, or try helping out.
I think Meghan's going to be next.
Oh, goodness.
That was full Meghan Markle.
It was, exactly.
That was full Meghan. That's right.
I wouldn't mind if she was blasted off and she stayed there. Anyway, moving on. Matthew Larser, talk us through yours.
Yeah, mine is Tory Robert Jenrick, who's the Shadow Justice Secretary, who caused a riot in Westminster as he added hundreds and hundreds of journalists, fellow politicians to a WhatsApp group, including the intern in my office who worked on his campaign, was briefly added to this group. Apparently it was because he wanted people to raise money for him running the London Marathon, but it launched speculation that it was all part of his leadership plotting against Kemi Badenoch, who he came second to last time around. So what a you-know-what. And, of course, everybody could see everybody else's message, so he probably broke data protection laws as well.
Oh, dear. Yeah, I saw Zia Youssef, the Reform chairman, tweeting Jenrick about this. So he accidentally added everybody...
Literally hundreds, his whole phone, basically.
But he was voted the sexiest man in Parliament, wasn't
Well, that's because of the Ozempic, isn't it? Because he's admitted to being whichever one of those products he was on.
Oh, really?
He's a shadow of his former self.
I didn't know
I think
that.
he has, yeah. And don't sue me if I've got it wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's talked about his weight loss journey, as Meghan would put it.
Yeah, well, he is running. He's running the London Marathon.
And he's running the London Marathon. I mean, he does look...
Yeah,
that would do it. That would do it.
Yeah, I
think
think
the Ozempic.
I think he has had it.
I want an Easter egg.
Right, yeah,
Now,
me too.
you've got an hour to go before you...
You've got to wait till tomorrow to eat your Easter egg chockies. Coming up next is Headliners with Leo Kearse. Leo, what's in store tonight?
We're going to be covering the trans protest in Trafalgar. Was it Trafalgar Square in London today? That was all the people protesting, saying they weren't going to erase women. What did they do? They erased a woman. They defaced the statue of a feminist woman. They said they weren't a threat to women. What did they do? They waved placards threatening women. So we've got that. We've got lots more. We've got Nick Dixon, Nick the Big Dog Dixon, and Paul Cox. We've got Dixon Cox on the show tonight. And we've also got Mumsnet blacklisted for government ads. I think when you infer the wrath of Mumsnet, you're in trouble.
Yeah, don't mess with those mums from Mumsnet. God, they're a force to be reckoned with. Thank you, Leo. Look forward to that. Thank you to my panel tonight, Linda, Matthew and Peter Blexley. And, of course, thank you guys at home. Have a really enjoyable Easter Sunday tomorrow. Wishing you a blessed day. I'll see you tomorrow from 3 p.m. Here's Headliners.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Well, for the rest of the Easter weekend, Easter Day itself should be fairly fine and dry for most of us, but rain unfortunately will return as we move into Easter Monday. So we've still got low pressure generally in charge over the coming days, but it will just weaken enough on Easter Day, as I said, to give a fairly fine day for many. But before we get there, for the rest of Saturday, still got some rain across parts of Northern Ireland and Western Scotland, but elsewhere should be a fairly quiet night. We will have some low cloud moving in off the North Sea, giving a fairly murky end to the night along eastern coast. So the clearest of the skies out towards the west, we could just see a touch of frost here as we start Easter Day morning. So having a closer look at Scotland first thing in the morning, a bit of an east-west split across the country. Eastern areas should be fairly fine with some spells of sunshine, but out towards the west we're still going to have this area of rain around, although it will start to break up as the morning goes on. A fairly grey and damp start also for Northern Ireland, but for much of England and Wales it should be a fairly reasonable start. Still that low cloud initially across the east and also potentially some showers down towards the south-east, but the low cloud and the showers will ease as we head towards lunchtime. So from much of England, Wales and eastern Scotland, it is going to be a fairly reasonable day.